With us is David Daley, gerrymandering guru and the author of Ratf, Why Your Vote Doesn't Count, and Unrigged, How Americans Are Battling Back to Save Democracy. Welcome to Amplify, David. I just love the name of your first book.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, it seems like we are screwed. And I got to tell you, when I look at our congressional maps, they look like these screwy little crazy squiggly lines that a 3-year-old drew. But what we know is that there is a sinister method to the madness. So I would love for you to start us off with explaining how our congressional district maps even sketched out.
That's a great question. They do look like modern art sometimes, but let me tell you, it is a dark modern science what this process has become. We redistrict all 435 congressional seats in this country in every state legislative district after the U.S. Census every 10 years. And that process is a little bit different in every state. In about 2/3 of the states, it is the politicians themselves that get to draw their own lines, choose their own voters. We are the only modern democracy in the world that allows this practice. It is insane. You can trace it back to the founding of our country. You can find Patrick Henry trying to gerrymander James Madison out of the very first U.S. Congress. We've been doing this as long as we've had politicians, but it has become so much more insidious for so many reasons, because the technology has become so precise and surgical that you can draw district lines that crack and pack exactly the voters you want into certain districts. And so, as you said, a process that is supposed to be about ensuring that every district has equal population and every vote counts equally turns into a process by which you can choose winners and losers for a decade.
Now, why are we doing this every 10 years?
Well, the idea is that population changes. There were a series of key U.S. Supreme Court cases back in the 1960s that really started the modern redistricting battles. And those cases were so important because for the 60 years prior to this, state legislatures, especially across the South, simply stopped redistricting at all, or they had districts that were wildly uneven. So take a state like Alabama, for example. From 1901 until the mid-1960s, Alabama did not redistrict at all. And what they held in their state senate was that every county had its own member. So you can imagine what that looks like in reality. The white rural counties where fewer people live have greater representation in Alabama's state senate, and the black cities end up having fewer representation, even though there's more people. So the process of this is designed to ensure that every district has got the same number of people. But of course, whenever politicians get involved and power is at stake, it becomes something quite different.
So having the same number of people is one thing, but I want to come back to something that you just said, is that, in our democratic process, in theory, we are voting to elect our representatives. But it seems like the politicians are actually choosing who they want to represent, right? Because they're able to decide, even if they have to have an equal number of constituents in a district, they get to pick and choose who they are. So can you just explain to us a little bit more about how in the world that happens and why that's fair?
That's exactly right. And it's not fair, fundamentally. When you have the power to draw those lines, you have the power to determine the outcomes of elections for a decade. So if you control the process, these days it has become a very high-tech process. The politicians and the operatives who run this show are very, very sophisticated. They have got computer mapping software that is extraordinarily powerful. They run this on very fast computers. They use mathematical algorithms. They've got terabytes of voter data, the census data, all kinds of information that you leave about yourself scattered about the internet. They have got, all kinds of voting patterns. And so they are able to predict with real certainty how people vote and how the lines that they draw will survive for a decade. Right after the 2018 midterm elections, there were 59 million Americans who lived in a state where one or both chambers of the state legislature was controlled by the party that won fewer votes in that election. That is just about 1 in 6 of us, and it's happening in some of our most competitive states. So this power is really the power to draw winners and losers, and it has become at the heart of Republican efforts to govern America through GOP minority rule.
Now, I want to talk about that actual strategy, but before I do that, I want to put up a couple of maps so that people can understand what we're actually talking about. And I want you to break this down for us. Let's look at North Carolina. This is a district in North Carolina that just looks absolutely crazy. When we say that these politicians are able to draw their own lines, I mean, literally, look at this North Carolina 1st Congressional District here. You can see the bulk of it, and then all of a sudden there's some people who are further south, kind of annexed off, that also are supposed to be a part of that same community and have that same representative. We have another one from Maryland. Do we have the map from Maryland? Let's look at that district. Pennsylvania, I think we have a Pennsylvania one too. Let's take a look at Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania 7th District. What in the world do I have deeply in common with if I live, over towards, the west side over there with all the people who are over on the east side? I mean, how this district isn't even connected. Like, it's the most bizarre looking thing I've ever seen. I mean, it's just wild how they're able to do this. So how is it, David, that lawmakers are carving out districts for themselves that don't even geographically connect? I mean, this is just so to say, oh, we represent, these constituents in this community that we all have these shared interests in, our neighbors, right? They're not really representing neighbors. I don't even understand how this happens this way. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
North Carolina is a fascinating example because what happened there is Republicans took over the process of drawing these maps a decade ago, and they admitted at the very beginning of the process that what they wanted to do was draw a map that would elect 10 Republicans and 3 Democrats. Now, North Carolina is a pretty 50-50 state, right? It's not a 10-3 state by any stretch of the imagination. But in order to do that, what they did really was draw those maps in order to pack as many black voters in North Carolina as they could into 2 districts. So what you're looking at in red there is North Carolina's 1st, which is represented by Congressman Butterfield. And that is, if you were to overlay that map onto a sense of the demographics and the racial demographics of North Carolina, what you would see is it probably corresponds very closely to where black voters in North Carolina live. And certainly North Carolina's 12th that we're looking at on the screen right now is a district that has also been drawn in order to ensure that as many black voters as possible live in that one district. Now, what happens when you draw all of the black voters in a district? You end up Democrat by about 80% of the vote. Those 2 districts overwhelmingly elect black Democrats. But because every district line affects the other line, that helps bleach all of the surrounding districts, older, whiter, rural, and more conservative. And so you end up with a swing state like North Carolina, a competitive state, but it's got 10 white conservatives and 3 Democrats. And this is how it's done. It's done packing as many black voters as you can into one district. It minimizes and dilutes votes is what it does, because those black voters do not have a chance to vote in other districts and contribute to really the full spectrum of representation in the state of North Carolina.
Now, we were believing, it seemed, that years ago, let's say, 50 years ago, that it made sense to have these very specific black districts, where we actually had black people who were representing black people. And that seemed to make sense. But it sounds like the Republicans have found a way to just kind of push all the black people into a corner. So all we got is what we got, and we can't weigh in elsewhere. Tell us, what is Operation Red Map?
Absolutely. Operation Red Map stands for the Redistricting Majority Project, and this is a Republican strategy that they launched really not long after the election of Barack Obama in 2008. Because, I mean, that was a night that we elected our first black president. Democrats won a supermajority in the U.S. Senate, huge advantages in the U.S. House. But what Democrats forgot and what Republicans understood was that 2010 is a census year, and we were going to be redrawing all the district lines right after 2010. So as historic as that election was, 2010 was more consequential. Red Map involved a $30 million effort by Republicans in order to win state legislatures in competitive swing states like North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Florida, Georgia, Texas, Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan, and take control of state legislatures, control every seat at the table when it came to redistricting, and then the following year draw themselves maps that they could not lose on in the state legislative level and also at the congressional level for the next decade. It worked perfectly for the Republicans. They did not lose a single chamber in any of those states over the course of the next 10 years. Even in years in which Democratic candidates won hundreds of thousands more votes, those Republican maps endured. And in some states, those Republicans endured so long in power that they are still there right now to draw the next decade of maps in states like North Carolina and Ohio.
I want to come back and keep talking about this state ledge piece because I think this is really the fine point that people need to understand why state legislatures matter. David, we're going to talk about so much more. I'm going to ask you to stick with me. We got to go to a quick break. We'll explain how we got here and what happens next right here on Amplified, only on BNC. Welcome back to Amplified. We are learning something about gerrymandering, y'all. It's crazy. And now I want to get into the nitty-gritty of where this is happening and how political parties, in particular the GOP, Republicans, are reaping the benefits of the process. It's really a scheme that's essentially baking into our democracy a dynamic of minority rule. The visuals of some of these districts, as we were just showing, are jaw-dropping. I think that Maryland's 3rd district has been dubbed the praying mantis in its shape, and Pennsylvania's 7th district looks like goofy kicking Donald Duck. Where is that? Can we put Pennsylvania back up there again? All jokes aside, there's something deeper happening here. Look at Maryland. It's crazy. Something deeper is going on, though, y'all. For example, North Carolina seems to have sketched its map to push minorities into 2 districts, just 2 districts. So what's going on here? Back with me, we have gerrymandering guru and author of Ratf, Why Your Vote Doesn't Count, and Unrigged, How Americans Are Battling Back to Save Democracy. David, thank you so much for sticking around. Before we left for the break, you were starting to go into state legislatures and how essentially it is these Republican-held legislatures that have an opportunity to sway the balance of power in the House. So I want to talk about that because we often are in our, political kind of playbook looking at national politics and not really paying attention to what's happening in the state legislative process. As you just mentioned, every 10 years, state legislatures are who get to draw these maps for the most part across the country, and Republicans have swept. I think we may have a map just to show you guys the balance of power right now in those state legislatures and where Republicans hold the ledge that's going to be creating these new maps after the 2020 census. So you can see here the partisan control for redistricting. And we're kind of screwed in a lot of places because Republicans are going to be playing footsie for themselves around all of this. So, David, just jump in here and talk to us about, their sinister, to use the word that you used in the last segment, their kind of sinister play and ploy here and long-term strategy to take over the state ledge so that they can then carve up these districts for what? What's the end game?
The end game is an enduring Republican minority rule that voters can't do anything to stop. And I sound apocalyptic. I understand it when I say that, but if you live in Wisconsin or North Carolina or Ohio, you understand that you simply haven't been able to turn your legislators out of power, even when hundreds of thousands of you would like to switch which party is in office. So if you look at a state like Texas, for example, you have lawmakers in Texas who are passing one of the most draconian abortion restrictions that this country has seen since Roe versus Wade established abortion as a constitutional right. And this is coming out of a wildly gerrymandered state legislature that knows that it can't be defeated at the polls. And it feels completely confident in going ahead and passing legislation that not only do Democrats and independents disagree with, but public opinion shows in Texas that 58% of Republicans disagree with it, and 52% of Trump voters even disagree with this. But those Texas lawmakers don't care. State legislatures are the ones who are in charge of your voting rights, how easy or difficult it is to cast a ballot, what kind of ID you have to show. They are in charge of whether or not your governor can enforce a mask mandate in public or in the schools. They're in charge of, in Michigan, you can trace the Flint water crisis to gerrymandering. You had voters in Michigan who back in 2012 said, we do not want this emergency manager law that allows the state government to take over our cities. The gerrymandered legislature went in and did it anyway. They said, we don't care. We're going to reinstate this law. The emergency manager who they put in charge of the water supply in Flint switched it to the Flint River, and you still can't drink the water. This is why gerrymandering and redistricting matters at the state level.
Yeah. I want to come back to something, that you said, I said. I want to talk about minority rule, though, because this whole gerrymandering situation really is preserving a minority rule in this country. Started off talking about how the demographics are shifting, where not only are people of color ultimately going to be the majority, and as you've showed us, we're being pushed into just a handful of districts, so we don't really have mass representation. But the other piece of this that we haven't talked about yet is that on a national scale, and this has happened now several elections, you have more Democratic voters, more Democratic votes electing members of Congress, and yet still end up where Republicans end up being the majority power. Same thing is happening, obviously, with the White House. But talk to us about, this minority rule that gets baked in, where the number of voters who are actually electing the Congress end up not balancing out to who has the actual power.
You're exactly right. The census shows that we are quickly becoming a multiracial nation, but what gerrymandering and voter suppression does is it keeps us from becoming a fully multiracial democracy. When politicians get to draw these lines, choose their own voters, a handful of them, a determined Republican minority, is able to use those rules to hold on to power. So it's not just at the state legislative level where, like I mentioned in 2018, you had nearly 60 million Americans living in states where Democratic candidates won more votes, but Republicans held all of the power. But what you also have is, 4.7 million more Americans voted for Democratic U.S. House candidates than Republican House candidates in 2020. And yet Democrats were only able to turn that into a standard 5-seat majority, 223. When Republicans won about a 4.3 million majority in 2014, this is the closest comparable historical election for a margin, that translated into 247 seats, right? So you already see the Democrats can win a lot more votes, but they end up with fewer seats. And much of that is
This just doesn't make sense. That's like fuzzy math, right? That's like the new math that the fifth graders are learning. I just don't even understand how any of this makes sense at all. What are we going to do about this? What can we do about this?
What can we do? Well, we have to figure it out fast because these lines are being redrawn right now, and Republicans, by redrawing Texas, Georgia, North Carolina, Florida, Kentucky, New Hampshire, they're going to be able to control the U.S. House even if they hold fewer votes. You could hold the same 2020 election under the 2022 lines, and Republicans would win, uh, even though nearly 5 million people wanted Democratic candidates. You've got two really important bills in front of Congress right now. You've got the People Act, which has been turned into the Freedom to Vote Act. That's the Manchin Compromise. And you've got the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, a reauthorization. That's Senate Bill 4. We need both of these bills to pass. If Democrats do not do anything about this, we are staring at entrenched Republican minority rule, perhaps for a generation. Oof. We already know about the balance in the U.S. Senate, in the popular vote for the presidency. They've got a chance right now to do something about it and to pass these two laws. They've got to do it.
This is crazy. Now, I don't want to be all doomsday here, but this process is really loose. And it sounds, I personally am very fearful of this minority rule because I know how we're growing demographically. I know the power that our communities have when banded together. And the fact that you've got some handful of nefarious actors who can manipulate all of us and still be in control, I think we all should be a little bit up in arms about this. Give us the worst case scenario of what can happen, though, as Republicans gerrymander their way into continuing to have a stronghold on power, especially in Congress.
Sure. Here's the worst case scenario. Republicans win the U.S. House in 2022, even though they win millions of fewer votes. They win the U.S. Senate because they already hold a demographic edge there because of the way that the Senate favors white, small, rural conservative states. And then the 2024 election comes around, and we think that the 2020 election was kind of a landslide, right? It was a 7 million margin for Joe Biden in the popular vote. But really, that election came down to 45,000 votes in 3 states, deeply gerrymandered Arizona, Wisconsin, and Georgia. 3 states that have all attempted new voter suppression methods in the days since the 2020 election. So those states could simply change the laws about how electoral college electors are allocated in their states. They could send members of Congress, like those who on January 6th of 2021 decided to not accept certified votes from Pennsylvania and Arizona. And all this could really fly off the guardrails. You could, if Joe Biden had lost those 3 states, if those 80,000 votes go another way, it's a 270 to 268 electoral college. And then, this is a crazy scenario as well, but Nebraska holds 1 congressional vote that goes to the winner of the Omaha district. And Joe Biden managed to win that district in 2020 by about 15,000 votes. Republicans have this week just gerrymandered that district in such a way as to give them an advantage there. So if 55 or 60,000 votes had gone the wrong way in 2020, the Electoral College would have been tied. It would have gone to the House, and the House does not elect based on individual members in that case. So Nancy Pelosi wouldn't have run the show. The House votes for president if it is tied based on congressional delegations. Each state gets 1 vote. And so the gerrymander would then re-elected Donald Trump. So this is baking in additional Republican advantages in all of the competitive swing states that are deeply,
This is crazy.
It's deeply dangerous to the idea of democracy.
Everybody, you've got to pay attention to what's happening in your states with redistricting and speak out against the gerrymandering. David Daley, thank you so much for joining me here on Amplified. Appreciate your insights. Thank you so much for being here.